It's your first job. Finally, you're getting a paycheck. You're ready to be more independent. In high school, you worked so hard to prove that you can do things, that you can be part of a team. And now you get to meet new people and learn a trade. Your boss will tell you you've done a good job, and to show you your worth, they will pay you so you can buy your own things and help your family. On your first day, it isn't quite what you expected. You're taught to make plungers. And after a while, you notice someone watching you. They click a stopwatch and leave. After working hard for 2 whole weeks, you finally get your paycheck. But it looks like you only made $3 an hour. Wait, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. There must be some mistake, right? It's not a mistake. It's the law. And the only reason you are caught up in this law is because you have a disability. Let's put this law into context. Following the Great Depression, manufacturing was booming, but workers, especially women and children, were still making Depression-era wages. So lawmakers approved the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938, which did many great things, including requiring a minimum wage. Enter Hudson Hastings, professor of industrial engineering at Yale University. He addressed Congress and expressed his concern that creating a minimum wage would mean many disabled and subnormal workers would lose their jobs. So, Section 14C was added to the Fair Labor Standards Act. Now let's think. Who are these lawmakers of the late 1930s? They are the same generation that came home from World War I with loved ones who were suffering from physical and mental challenges. Even President Roosevelt, who signed the law, was in a wheelchair. These lawmakers all thought they were doing a good thing, and at the time, they were. How could they have known that this good thing would someday be subverted? Here's how 14C works in practice today. A company needs work done such as shredding paper, sorting different size tools, and any number of other high-volume repetitive work. So they send out a contract for bid. A group with a 14C certificate issued by the Department of Labor wins the bid. These groups run a sheltered workshop, which employs people with disabilities, segregates them from other people, and pays them a sub-minimum wage based on their productivity as compared to the productivity of an average experienced worker. Remember that stopwatch you saw earlier? You made 5 plungers. An average experienced worker makes 10. Is average the right number? I say no, it is not, when the range at the top could be 16, while at the bottom it could be 4. So a normal worker can make 4 plungers and make minimum wage, but you, at 5 plungers, cannot, just because you have a disability. These groups get their 14C certificates based on an assumption that the work is transitional, so the workers can have a safe place to learn a trade so that they can find jobs outside of the shop. Unfortunately, that rarely happens. You see, workers with disabilities are often highly productive, and these contracts are lucrative. There is zero incentive for a workshop to transition its top workers or anyone out of segregation and into the workforce. Some would wonder, what would these disabled people do without a sheltered workshop? When I was in school, there were special educators in government agencies who helped me and my family map out a plan for my future. Thankfully, I had a great group who saw my potential. But in understaffed schools or absent government or nonprofit programs, these families are often just told that the only option for their precious child is a sheltered workshop. Others would wonder, it's a good thing we have these workshops so these disabled people can be in a safe place with others that are like them, because they probably can't do anything anyway. And that would be the myth that has been told to generations of disabled people and their families. In the 2016 documentary Bottom Dollars, LaRon Jackson recounted how he was put in a sheltered workshop, and because the current contract involved packing clothing, he was told to bend down, pick up clothes, and put them in a barrel. LaRon has cerebral palsy and is confined to a wheelchair. When he bent over, he couldn't get back up, and he had to ask for help. It was very demeaning and unsafe. After 2 weeks, his entire paycheck only came out to $2.50. So he quit, earned his degree, and today works for disability rights. We all have dreams. We all have skills. We all want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Sound familiar? Let's talk about that. I have a life that is different. I have things I'm good at and not so good at, same as anyone else. No, I'm not going to go after a job loading trucks or running touchdowns because physically, I'm not going to be good at that. But hey, about 3/4 of you out there would not be up here because of a fear of public speaking. We each excel at jobs matched to our skills. Meanwhile, the founders of our country broke away from the norm by declaring that we each have a right to liberty, to live free, to not be controlled by others. I would argue this is the most challenging part of being disabled. There is a very thin line between helping us and controlling us. This is where 14C went wrong. It gave control to those who wanted to help, but also to those who only saw cheap labor and had no desire to move any of this labor to a better place. Liberty, which is the soul of the Declaration of Independence, is a right of us all. Happiness. Every one of us wants to be included. The joy of hearing "job well done" is universal. There are many ways to recognize our contributions, but of all of them, the paycheck is the one that allows us to live independently. Unless, of course, we showed up, worked as hard as we could, we were totally dependable, and now we still cannot afford to even buy groceries because the law says we are worth less. I'd like to leave you with 3 questions that can help us fix this. First, ask why. Why has this segregation been allowed to continue? Did you even know about 14C before I told you? To be blunt, we in the disabled community are not a sexy marketing opportunity. A person who can't speak won't be heard. A person who can't move everywhere won't be seen. A person who is unable to understand the nuances of this law won't challenge it. The disabled community fights a battle that just doesn't seem as important or urgent as those that capture the media headlines. Second, ask why not. Accommodating someone with a disability is so much easier than most people think. Hire us. We'll figure out how to make it work. Employers who are inclusive say time and again how dependable and productive their disabled workers are. During COVID, how many of you appreciated the accommodation of working remotely? And I doubt most of you would argue about sidewalk cutouts, elevators, or using your voice to send that text to your mother. All of these started as accommodations for the disabled. We just don't need 14C anymore. Finally, who? The good news is that 10 states have already outlawed some minimum wage. But my state, South Carolina, is not one of them. Several bills have been introduced to the state Congress in the past, but they tend to die in committee. Thankfully, in South Carolina, we have ABLE-SC and ARC. And nationally, we have the American Association for People with Disabilities and the ADA National Network. But who else will join the fight? Will it be you? Will you get involved? Ask people if they've heard of Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act and tell them about it. And hey, if you don't know anyone with a disability, try introducing yourself. I'd like to meet you.